Chapter 4: Friends and Rivals. No riders stormed through Greyhaven's gates. No guards burst into the stable demanding searches. Tom worked from dawn to dusk, his body growing accustomed to labor. Hadrick's instructions became fewer corrections turned into nods of approval. "You're less clumsy than when you arrived," the stable master admitted one morning as Tom secured a harness properly on the first attempt. Tom allowed himself a faint smile. "I learn quick." "Aye. That you do." At I's tavern, Liz appeared one afternoon as Tom struggled to balance a tray of mugs. She slipped from behind the counter with the ease of someone born among tankards and chatter. "Hold it like this." She'd adjusted his grip without ceremony. She looked a bit older than Tom, with brown eyes and long, dark braided hair. Tom flushed. "I had it." "You were about to drench that table and its occupants in ale." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. He huffed a reluctant laugh. Despite the embarrassment, he had to agree. Liz watched for a few seconds, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and went back behind the counter. From that day on, Liz took it upon herself to instruct him in the finer arts of tavern survival. He learned how to anticipate a patron's next drink before he asked, and how to spot a brewing argument before it turned into flying chairs. "Here." Liz handed Tom a heel of a loaf of bread. "You look like you haven't eaten since you've arrived with Rylan." "How did you know?" "Hadrick talks." She glanced at him briefly. "Not much, but enough." She told him stories of growing up in Greyhaven, the river festivals in summer, the winter markets. Last spring a sailor tried to ride a pig through the square on a market day. Dared everyone and placed a wager. The pig won. They both laughed at that. "What about you?" she'd asked. "We had markets too. Not as much fun though." He got up and picked up a mop. Not everyone welcomed him so easily. Dirk made sure of that. The blacksmith's son was taller and broader than Tom, his arms already thick from swinging hammers in his father's forge. His hair was cropped short, his jaw perpetually set. Tom first noticed him watching from across the square while he carried a sack of grain back to the stable. Later, as Tom passed near the forge, Dirk called out, "Hey, stable rat." Tom kept walking. A heavy, calloused hand clamped onto his shoulder and spun him around. "You deaf?" Dirk sneered. Tom looked up steadily. "Busy." Dirk snorted. "Heard you came from the south. Run from something?" Tom's jaw tightened. "No." "Bandits, maybe?" Dirk's grin widened. "Were you one of them?" Dirk shoved him lightly. "Cat got your tongue?" "Leave him be, Dirk." Liz stood behind them, arms crossed. Dirk looked a little deflated, then rolled his eyes. "Go back to pouring ale, Liz." "Go back to your father's skirts," she shot back. A few onlookers chuckled. Dirk's face reddened. He turned back to Tom. "You think you're something? Ryland's little stray?" That struck at Tom's core and he felt heat rise in his chest. He took a deep breath. "I'm working," he said quietly. "Same as you." Tom turned to walk away. Dirk shoved him harder this time. Tom stumbled, dropping the sack, and turned toward Dirk. The second shove came faster and stronger. This time Tom reacted. He had learned early that running invited pursuit. Standing firm sometimes ended it. He swung his fist and connected with Dirk's cheek. The sound startled them both. Dirk blinked in disbelief before rage overtook him. He lunged, tackling Tom to the ground. They grappled in the dirt, arms flailing, fists striking. Dirk pushed Tom's face into the dirt. Tom grabbed Dirk's hair. Liz shouted. Someone laughed. Someone else yelled for them to stop. "Enough." Hadrick's bellow cut through the noise. He hauled Dirk off by the collar while pushing Tom's chest. Both boys were breathing hard, faces flushed, arms still reaching for the other. "Stop it." They glared at each other. "No blood," Hadrick observed gruffly. "Good." Dirk wiped his nose. "He hit me." "You shoved him," Liz snapped. Hadrick glared at them both. "You want to fight, you do it in the yard after your chores. Not in front of customers." Dirk glanced at Liz, then muttered something under his breath. Tom held his tongue. They were released with stern warnings. As Liz was walking away, Dirk stared at her, his eyes gradually softening. Tom checked the ring. It was still tucked beneath his shirt. That evening, as Tom headed for the loft, Liz caught up with him. "You're terrible at fighting," she informed him. "Thanks." He winced. "But you didn't back down." He shrugged. She hesitated. "Dirk's like that." She paused. "He'll try again." "I'll be ready," he said without conviction. Her eyes lingered as she studied him, then she went back to the tavern. Tom was not the only kid in the neighborhood Dirk took a dislike to. There were Tina and Ray, the baker's twins, always dusted in flour and never still. When they weren't running, they carried trays of bread to the cooling racks, stealing burnt crusts when they thought no one was looking. Sid, the tailor's son, was harder to notice. Thin and quiet, he spent most of his time perched on a stool outside the shop, fixing some piece of clothing with practiced ease. Now and then, Dirk would walk by muttering something under his breath. Sid never answered. Others drifted along the street, errand runners or children too young to be useful but old enough to be in the way. Tom saw the way the others shifted when Dirk approached, how conversations faltered, how eyes dropped or turned away. No one challenged him unless forced. Work filled most hours, but from time to time children claimed the street for themselves. A bundle of cloth became a ball, tossed or chased around the street. A stick became a sword in epic battles of brave knights. Shouts and chases, laughter and tears filled the days. This reminded Tom of Pete. Neither of them had a home to go back to. They had slept under worse roofs than Tom's stable. Sometimes there were broken carts, doorways, crumbling walls. Pete had always made a joke of it, kicking Tom's boot and saying they were lords of whatever patch of ground they claimed. One day, he'd say, staring up at the sky, "We'll have a roof that doesn't leak and a door we can lock. Maybe even a window." Tom would snort and tell him to stop dreaming, but he never told him to stop talking. The dreams made the cold easier, made the hunger feel like something temporary, something they could outlast.